do that without regulation. This brief and this document which you have prepared cannot be delinked from a regulatory framework. There must be sanctions, there must be punishment, there must be accountability through a legal process. So I would urge that I see there's a section on the law, and I'm sure this is there in your strategies. It's not just institutional framework, changing cultures, etc. There is a role for the legal system. And the fact is, all of us have not been reached. All of us in the system have not reached it. Some of us as vice chancellors, and I'm sure we have a vice chancellor here, there may be others on the audience, we didn't do this. We said we will not compromise if we got these instances. We told the police to prosecute. We had internal inquiries, and I must say, in the University of Colombo, there was ragging, I think, in the halls, but it was very difficult to get evidence of that. But when it did have, there were one or two, it did occur in departments, there were one or two cases on which we took action. We did take reaction. But it didn't manifest itself because it was a hidden problem, even there. But in universities where it was a manifest, and I think there was a residential university, as I kind of see more serious problems, I think there have been instances where action has been taken, but not enough. So the Ragging Act, I do not think, come across any cases, I doubt that it was ever used. Whether the Ragging Act was used and a student or a member of the staff was prosecuted, I doubt it very much. So why then, with this plethora of laws and rules, has there been no intervention? That is the lack of a truly management culture which makes for accountability. That we do also conceive. And I'm sure this document will provide substantive suggestions on what can be done to strengthen the management system and to strengthen the responsibility. I remember when we were drafting this act, some of us suggested that we should put a responsibility of the management, the administration of universities, for not taking action. The Indian Act and the Indian legislation, particularly in Tamil Nadu, had such a provision. But we failed to put it in. We recommended it. It did not come in the legislation that was passed in Parliament. Then the other problem is the real difficulty of getting complaints. And that's why the proposals on the complaint mechanism in this document would be very useful, Mr. Chairman, to you and to the universities and to the vice chancellors to look at what is the complaints mechanism. Because one of the problems with the complaints mechanism was that there was no clear complaints mechanism, and therefore people found it difficult to complain. That was one. However, there was also self-censorship and an unwillingness on the part of the victim, as well as even members of staff who knew about what was happening in the area of sexual harassment in particular, to intervene and take action. So that was a serious problem, because I remember one instance where I was told from outside the university, ex-faculty is notorious for sexual harassment. How come nothing is being done? I said, come and let me know, and I will take action. I got no complaints. Why? Because no one was willing to come forward from the staff and make a complaint against X. Then came an instance where there was a really bad case, and at least 6 senior academics came to me and said, look, this is going on, you've got to stop it. I said, fine, put this down in writing, because you see, this individual is entitled to due process. At that time, we thought due process was important. Now, of course, you say, off with that, problem. I like to think it has changed. So, due process means this person has to be confronted, this person has to be told, this person has to be charged. So what happened? No one was willing to do that. So, the staff are also unwilling to make the complaint. Then we had 1 or 2 other instances, and the successful ones were where the dean brought the person who alleged to me. We had conversations, we talked about it. We had an internal mediation solution, which worked. And that person came back and said, everything is fine now, no harassment on my part from this person, and I'm all right. I'm not uncomfortable, everything is okay. So it was an internal process. But then, when the one and only case, we had an inquiry against a very senior person, again the problem was the complainant, who was a student, kept backtracking. I don't know what the diamond was, probably intimidation. So, at the end of the day, the conclusion was approved. So these are practical issues of the complaint system. And then we tried to address it in the University of Colombo by passing what I believe, council passing what I believe is the only sexual harassment code in the university system. I don't know if there has been another one. Professor Nelufa Dimel was part of that team. We took provisions from other universities and we crafted a code. That code went to the Senate, because the Senate had to approve. We had massive support in the Senate. The only point on which they disagreed was, there was a clause which said that if a staff member met a student in their offices, I think Dr. Gunasekera will remember, he was Dean of Faculty Management, the door must be open. This is a standard practice in universities in the West, and we know it is followed in Asia. And the Senate just tore it down. What nonsense, you can't have this because we need privacy. So that was dropped. But we had an internal system, and the code was passed, it was passed by council. Now what happened? Institutional changes occurred. So I then completed my term. Several years later, I'm invited for a seminar on sexual harassment. I said, look, you have a code. Deans don't know, heads of department don't know, vice chancellor doesn't know, nobody knows. And this code was in the 2000 year calendar. It was in the 2000 year calendar together with the Ragging Act. Because I thought this is best to institutionalize it and put it. But that's a classic case of institutional failure. So it's put in the calendar, it doesn't go into the system. Nothing happens. And the whole code is ignored. So that again then shows us that institutionalizing this thing probably requires a kind of perhaps a sophisticated and nuanced approach which you have documented here, and which therefore vice chancellors and the UGC should follow. So that this code, or whatever you put, as a self-regulatory mechanism, it's very common in the private sector now, I'm told, a lot of people have it, but that doesn't go with the change of institution. The continuity is there. So to change a management culture, I think requires commitment. It requires and those are challenges. It requires commitment. It requires commitment at the level of the UGC, which is a regulator. It requires commitment at the level of the vice chancellors and deans. It requires commitment right through the system. And I believe there's a very serious role for the UGC as a regulator to use this document and take this on and see how can we institutionalize it and how can it go into the systems. And that of course will mean commitment on the part of the vice chancellors and the deans to ensure that you create a culture supportive of this, not only through your own system of standard setting, but through curricula, etc. I remember when I was in the Open University and I was doing the course materials on criminal law, I took all the provisions in the criminal law on gender-based violence, and I did a module which is called Gender-Based Violence in the Criminal Law. Now that again was put into the course materials in the hope that it will continue. The lecturer changed, the teacher changed, and next thing I was told, that particular module was dropped from the curriculum. So that's again an instance where you can try to do these things, but without the institutional arrangements, without the institutional continuity, you cannot try or begin to achieve what we're trying to do, which is to create a culture within the university system of support and continuity for that culture.